This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. The parents of American journalist James Foley, who was viciously murdered at the hands of ISIS savages, say he was a hero and that he represented the goodness of America. Listen to some of their emotional statement earlier today.
Jim just could feel the prayers. He was strong, courageous, loving to the end. I mean, we just hardly recognized our little boy. I mean, he was just a hero,
And from the videos, his last words were, "I wish I had more time to see my family."
So Jim had a big heart, and that's what we shared with President Obama.
U.S. intelligence officials confirmed that the video appearing to show an Islamic State militant beheading Foley is authentic. President Obama addressed the beheading from Martha's Vineyard earlier today, and as usual, he was long on words, but short on solutions to eliminating the ISIS threat.
Let's be clear about ISIL. They have rampaged across cities and villages, killing innocent, unarmed civilians in cowardly acts of violence. They've murdered Muslims, both Sunni and Shia, by the thousands. They target Christians and religious minorities. ISIL speaks for no religion. One thing we can all agree on is that a group like ISIL has no place in the 21st century.
The president spoke for about 5 minutes on the Islamist beheading of an American citizen before immediately heading back to the golf course. A tough day for the families and for the family of the journalist who is still missing and believed to be with ISIS. Eric, you made a noise at the end there.
Yeah, because,
what bothered you?
Let me just start this. So I'm sitting yesterday and sitting next to my friend Brian with Sky News. He said, "Did you see this video?" And I went to YouTube and the video was still up. Now, they pulled that video down in about 20 minutes. I made the mistake of watching because I watched it and it infuriated me. It was so disgusting. I realized that at the moment we're dealing with something that we've never dealt with before. I was enraged. So I was waiting for President Obama to say something. Allegedly, he was going to say something last night. He chose not to. He came to the podium today, and I listened. As you point out, 5 minutes. He spent 5 minutes, by the way, no tie, noticed that as well. And that was it. There were no questions. And I yelled out, "That's it. This is what our commander-in-chief is going to do. He's going to spend 5 minutes describing ISIS. Or ISIL, as he points out. He didn't really say what we're going to do, what our response is going to be. He basically said they're murderous thugs and blah, 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 and they're terrible and they're awful and that's them. But they didn't say, and then what? I was waiting for, and then what? No questions. And then we found out he goes back to the golf course. And that was at the point where I just said, you know what? Stick a fork in him. President Obama is done. He doesn't want to be president anymore. He doesn't want to be commander-in-chief anymore. He wants to get back on the golf course and finish what he started, and that was his golf game. And fortunately, not finishing what we've started or they started, which is taking care of these murderous thugs. They need it. They need to find out what it's like to be on the business end of the drone.
Dana, take us through some of the communication aspects here. And I know you were sort of engaging in some foreshadowing this morning, wondering what he was going to do after the statement. How do you feel about it now compared to what you were thinking about before?
Well, last night I assumed that there would be no golf today. So I tweeted, my prediction was that there would be no golf today. It was part prediction, part advice. But I can understand. I'm just going to try to put myself in their shoes. One thing we do not know.
Golf shoes.
One thing we don't know is what the intelligence community is suggesting to President Obama in terms of his posture and his tone, because we do have other Americans in harm's way that are being held. So perhaps they are suggesting, Mr. President, it would be better for you to go about your business and pretend like you're not giving them attention, okay? That could be something that they're thinking. I don't know. I'm being pretty kind there. I do think that
you're generous,
yes. The president, because he has several different audiences that he's speaking to at once, the family, other reporters, our enemies, our allies, that one day this would have been a good day to have a somber moment. I just would not have played golf. I just wouldn't have done it. I do think something's interesting about the president and what he said. He continues to say, and he said this before about Putin, that ISIS that they will not succeed in the 21st century, that they will not be successful because that's not how people act in the 21st century. Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, that is how people are acting in the 21st century. And ISIS, they might want to live in the Stone Age, and maybe we should help them get there. We don't know what the president might be doing in terms of getting our allies, including the EU, which I think has been very silent on this. Maybe we're about to make a big move that would try to push back on some of these terrorists. I hope that's true.
Greg, so what do you think? Was the president a little bit tone deaf today? I mean, there's a lot of different theories, okay, that perhaps he didn't want to come out so strong and then poke the cage, and then further endanger and then be criticized if he did anything that in fact infuriated them to kill the other journalists. I don't know. It just definitely wanting for a little bit more.
I don't mind this professorial approach, or if he golfs, as long as he authorizes the death of all of these ghouls. Then I don't care what he does. And I do understand the notion of not responding to some British loser in the desert, that you don't want to put your president on the same level of some scum who's up there. You don't want to make it that. You don't want to make them equal. But the thing that I think, I mean, what he could do, is that there is an importance about expressing passion when there's evil in the world. This is a moment, is a horrible wake-up call that is necessary, that ushers in the death of innocence. For a lot of people who weren't around for 9/11, these things happen to tell us how to think about evil. So why can't we, if evil uses these videos to recruit their people, why don't we do the same? Why can't we use these events to appeal to our own youth, to our young people, for a sense of justice and a sense of purpose? We need people here to see that the threat is here and that it must be destroyed. You know, this evil grew because we let it. This is the first threat. The radical Islamic threat is the first threat that has been cocooned within the protection of tolerance. We never fought this threat as hard because we feared being labeled Islamophobic. And ISIS sprouted out of that fear, out of our cowardice of being politically incorrect, allowed this to happen. And now, as cold and calculated and tireless as President Obama is, I don't mind that if he evaporates and gets rid of all of them, then all is forgiven.
Okay, Bob.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think Obama does good well. He does evil badly. I mean, when in terms of communication, you know, I don't think he knows how to get the kind of that sort of demeanor that you're talking about. It's always hope and, you know, and all that stuff. He does that well. The other, he doesn't. The other thing is, Eric said about the business end of a drone. There have been over 100 U.S. airstrikes. The ISIS is running like scalded dogs off that dam. There now is a resistance. Maybe it's too late. Maybe it's late, but it's not too late. And as I suspected, once they're faced with some serious air power, as happened in the Balkans, with other savages, by the way, we eventually won that war through the air, and now we have drones we didn't have then. I think what you're seeing here is the beginning of a very substantial degrading of ISIS.
Well, let's hope. And you know what else we can do? We can also continue to help the Kurds. Help the Kurds, and you know, they're fighting. They're fighting ISIS with antiquated equipment. They need some help.
Not now. And by the way, I was happy to see that I'd been jumping on, but I was happy to see the Iraqi military get into this fight at the dam, and they did a good job. And so the other thing that happened yesterday, I don't know, not to talk about it, but I have to say this, that the lead religious figure in Saudi Arabia came out and absolutely eviscerated ISIS, and it is about time. It's the first time. Now my question is, where are the rest of you Muslim heads of state?
So can I just, Bob, you love to defend the president. What was that? What was that press conference? What was the reason to spend to walk away from the golf course, go to the podium, and spend 5 minutes? But what was the reason? He didn't fire, as Greg points out, let these thugs, cockroaches know we're going to eviscerate them. He didn't do that.
You may find it hard to believe, but I don't have a lot of fun defending the president.
Okay, well then what was that?
I think that was Barack Obama, that the way he does these things. That is him. He does, as I said, he doesn't do evil well. Should he have gone back to the golf course? Probably not, in terms of the optics. Does I think it matters in the long run? I don't. You say put the fork in him. I mean, he's already. He's not going to run again.
He's done.
He's not going to run again. But then again, you know, everybody said he was done over Obamacare. We haven't heard anything about it in 3 months.
Dan, you have a quick comment? Otherwise, I was
going to mention a couple of things. That the video of the beheading is one I did not watch it. some people have, and I think that's right because they have to witness it so then they can explain it to me. But it's not something that I want to see, and it's not something also that I want to give the terrorists the satisfaction of getting my attention. But I think the most important video of the day is the one of the family's reaction. What courage it took for them, knowing for the last 2 years that their son was being held hostage, and then reportedly for the last week, understanding that the demise was near. And then to know that they have to live, this was not just a reporter that they're talking about or a fellow American, this was their baby.
Right, I know.
And so I think that the most important video is that one, and I applaud them for their courage.
Did he get picked up in Syria? Is that where they got him?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yes.
The second time.
But let's talk about this, and Eric brings up the point. Let's talk a little bit about, Jim Foley. This was someone who was certainly courageous, that was trying to bear witness to what was going on there and to the suffering of the people. This individual, this young man, was kidnapped before in Libya in 2011, and he was on O'Reilly talking about it. Take a listen, please.
They interrogated me for 6 hours initially, and that was kind of felt like a mind game. One guy would be playing kind of good cop. One guy would come in yelling and saying, "We think you're a spy." And eventually you figured out, look, I just got to stick to my story, make sure I tell the absolute truth that I'm a journalist. That's my only chance.
I mean, what are the odds? It's, just to listen to his words, to think about that after being in harm's way, that he went back out, to serve the good fight again and try and bring us the truth about what's going on around the world and the suffering of the people in Syria and the suffering of the people in Libya. I'm sure very tough for his parents, Dana, to see this and hear this and then to lose him.
I think that they do live with a tremendous amount of pride in their son, and they should. The way that you eradicate evil, first and foremost, you have to expose it. And it's because of people like Jim Foley who were willing to go, put themselves in harm's way. Now, there's a question about the responsibility of that. He knew that he was going into a dangerous situation. Right. One of the big problems, I think, around the world is that there are very few bureaus anymore. There used to be journalists stationed all over the world, and news organizations have had to cut back, whether for cost or for other reasons, maybe also because of concern about safety. Where he was in Syria, 170,000 civilians have been killed. It's not a story that gets on the front page every day, and he was trying to tell that story, but it's been 2 years that he's been unable to report because he was held hostage himself.
Very difficult. And Eric, also, there were some really poignant comments that he was a kind of a leader, and the one that the younger hostages are there looked on, that he would hug them in their time of stress and anxiety. And
take that young man that we saw from that O'Reilly interview. Think about that, and then look at that picture of him kneeling in the desert. Look at his face, and think about what goes through his mind at that moment. Think about what it took for him to sit there and do that, knowing exactly what was going to come right after that, and the comments he had made just beforehand. It's just disgusting. By the way, any question about ISIS not being the freaking JV team now, I think they're all off the table right now. It might be nice if someone from the
can I say something?
You don't get
step up and say,
we
screwed up. We made a mistake. They ain't the JV team. They're the real deal.
All right. The other part of the video that is important, and probably the most important part, is the British accent.
Right.
That tells you, for example, this fact that
Jihad
more than twice British Muslims are in ISIS than they are in the armed forces, according to a British member of parliament. That's 1,500 British Muslims in ISIS versus 600 in the military. These are guys with British soccer season tickets in their wallets and gym membership cards. These are the needles in the haystack that we've been talking about. This is the bridge between the West and the East. And will this cause the libertarians in the world to reconsider their casual dismissal of intel? Is it a coincidence that ISIS has exploded as our intelligence was compromised by Snowden?